Thanks very much, Mike, and thank you everybody for coming this evening. So, here's the first half, and here goes. Some of you might have seen in one or two of the more progressive newspapers this morning, I won't name any names, an extraordinary and momentous revelation that a private company has discovered a loophole, perhaps not an accidental loophole, in the so-called Health and Social Welfare Bill being put forward by Andrew Lansley for the Conservatives in front of the Commons. And what the company has found is that it can propose itself as both the purchaser and provider of healthcare. So it's effectively taking over the role that GPs were supposed to be given, these consortia of GPs were supposed to be given by the government's bill. And it's found that this private company can come in and basically say, we now own this part of the health service. It is, in effect, the outright privatization of that part of health provision. And it hopes to make its money by reducing its costs, because what the bill allows is competition on price for the first time, by reducing its costs to about 95% of current costs of GP services, and then reclassifying the surplus as profit and taking that for itself and giving some to the GPs who, in the consortia, are likely to make about £1 million each per year, apparently, under the profit model which this company has set up. And the company is preparing to float itself on the stock market in 3 or 4 years' time. So what this means is that a very significant part of the NHS is effectively going to operate more or less like any other corporation. It will, in effect, be privatised.
This is what you get with variety of different people doing different kinds of things without some great NHS monolith, the biggest employer outside China. You need variety which is unpredictable. Your sort of argument, it's sort of like a computer program. If you do this, then this happens. If you do that, then that happens. It's not like that. Life isn't like that. And the trouble is, you can't factor it in with those sorts of basically journalistic kind of long discussions.
Okay, no, thank you very much. That's a great start for us. Now, my response to that is that the plural of anecdote is not data. Yes, it is true that you can pull out examples of where the private sector has done groundbreaking research and development and has introduced fantastic new technologies. But I would remind you that in terms of all scientific research in this country, in all academic institutions, government still provides nearly 93% of that funding. Corporations just provide 7%, or rather government and charities provide 93%. Corporations just provide 7% of the funding for research in our academic institutions. And yet, of course, this isn't the story they like to tell.
I wonder what you think, George, and anybody else thinks about the ideas of Tim Jackson, who was the chair of the Sustainable Development Commission, presented his report on prosperity without growth to the Labour government, wasn't listened to, and then went public and wrote what I think is a very inspiring book, and saying that an economy needs to be absolutely secondary to the need to live within ecological limits, and all the research about what makes human beings flourish indicates that it's a gap between rich and poor in society that needs to be diminished. It's not about absolute wealth.
Yes. No, thank you very much for bringing that up. And I think Tim Jackson's book is a very important one, as is Herman Daly's book, Steady State Economics, which both propose a means by which you could have a thriving and prosperous nation with everybody's needs met without this continual need for growth, which I would argue generally takes place at the expense of other people, either in the present or in the future. And I think it's a critically important part of the discussion, which, as you say, has been lost, and greatly complemented by by this book, The Spirit Level, which looks at many of the other advantages of greater social equality.